In your early 20s, you will invariably see many, many, many paths before you. And if you're anything like me and you're incredibly curious, you won't be able to decide between them easily, and you will feel overwhelmed by the sheer possibility of options that the modern world offers. And in episode 2 of Courageously Curious, I'm gonna talk you through things that I learned in my early 20s about how to choose, what these different paths have in common, and psychological theories that can help you make these decisions and feel better and less confused on the way. Why am I in nature? Why am I sitting here? Well, because I love the great outdoors. I feel alive in nature. But I also am a sucker and a nerd for behavioral science, and I love to yap, and I wanted to start a podcast. And so I started a podcast in nature. That's it. Now, let's get to it. After I graduated my master's degree at 22 years old, I saw a variety of options in front of me. Go into consulting, go into a different corporate job, start my own videography business, or go travel the world. And I chose to, as my first move out of university, take a year off and fulfill a lifelong dream to travel to New Zealand, where I currently am. And along that way, listening and talking with many other people, I eventually figured out that travel in and of itself is, as so many other things, a hollow end. I've spoken with so many travelers these past 12 months, and people say, oh, you gotta go there, and you've got to go there, and you have to see Tasmania, and Brazil, and Peru, and oh my God, Scandinavia. And this is all true, and for a while it feels really, really good to chase the next waterfall, the next destination, and the next sunrise. But after a while I noticed in myself that when I listened to these people describing these amazing destinations and I saw pictures of it, I knew that if I would take a flight or whatever, take an effort to go there and see this, I would be like, oh my God, yes, that's amazing. But what now? It would feel good in the moment, but my life wouldn't really have changed after seeing this, after going to this new destination. And invariably it became, or it would have become, just a chasing of another dopamine hit. Just, the same as someone chasing a new number on their bank account or a new level in a video game, just out in nature. Same principle. And I came to realize that I could, and before I had this realization, I got a bit of FOMO because I thought, oh my God, there's so much to see, I can't see everything. But then I met this old man, as so often we get our wisdom from the old. I was on a mountain hut in New Zealand, and I met a trekking group of hikers from New Zealand, 60, 70-year-old women and men. And it was this beautiful destination with natural hot pools where warm water came out of the ground. And I asked this man, have you been here before? And he's like, no, first time here. And I thought, okay. If this man has lived in New Zealand for 70 years, is in a trekking group that specifically dedicates itself to explore places in New Zealand, and even he has not been everywhere, then I can in good conscience allow myself to not to feel bad about not seeing everything that this country has to offer. And this was really, after a bit of reflection, this really became a turning point, because I realized that I couldn't see everything and I stopped stressing about it. And then eventually I came to the realization that, many other people talk about many other destinations, but it's a hollow end. And after that realization, I became much more intentional with the places I visited and why I visited them. And the same thing, I believe, can be extrapolated to many, many different fields, whether it be working in tech, working in consulting, working in finance. It can be applied to athletics. Every bubble you slot yourself into, the content creator bubble, the consulting internship bubble, or the travel bubble, or this startup bubble, people invariably, I say invariably a lot today, start to compete on status and start to turn this thing into status games. With travelers, it's where have you been? Have you seen this and this and this before? With consulting, it's what kind of internship have you got? Big prestigious firm. With startups, it's like what's your monthly recurring revenue? How many users do you have? Like what did you raise in your seed round? You know? And all these things have this kind of, they turn into their own rat races in a way. And I think only when you realize that can you figure out, okay, to what degree does this race serve me and my personal mission? And when does it start to become something I do for the validation of others or just for the next dopamine hit when you achieve even something that is very hard to achieve? And then it doesn't serve my own mission anymore and is a distraction rather than a goal. And I want you to be wary of that when you choose a game to play, when you choose a bubble that you kind of get sucked into or that you deliberately step into, that at some point it dissolves into a status game that might not serve you anymore. The second thing I realized after a year of traveling is that everything has trade-offs, even though they might not look like trade-offs to you. Let me give you an example. Living in a van was for me a lifelong dream and it was amazing. But at some point I found myself at 10:30 in the morning. I just came back from a 12-kilometer run. It was 10 degrees outside. I was a bit cold and the only shower that was available to me was a public shower on like a water playing ground in the middle of like a park. That's it, cold water, 10 degrees Celsius outside. I just came back from a run. That's it, that's what I had to shower. And for me that was fine. I took a jump in the ocean, I showered myself, and I realized that nobody sees these kind of things, right? I didn't post this on Instagram, although maybe I did, I don't know. But when you think of van life, you think of all the good shit, but you don't think of the bad stuff. And for me, not having warm showers is a trade-off I'm happily willing to make for a year to see all these amazing destinations, like this one. You might not be willing to make that trade-off. First of all, you might not even know that I make the trade-off. And second of all, for you it might be a deal breaker. And it is not for me. And the very same thing applies to people who build companies or who break world records in sports. They sacrifice a lot. They sacrifice so much. Things that they maybe are even happy to sacrifice that you would never want to sacrifice. And yet, when you see what they accomplish, you are envious of them or you want what they have, but you don't see what they don't have. I have a friend, she used to date a guy who founded a startup that is now worth several million, and his goal was to build that company out, sell it, and then when he's 30, retire and basically spend all this time with his family. And that sounds great, but she said, okay, he's years away from being able to sell the company, and already now he's not sleeping well. He's stressed all the time. He does not have a social life. He doesn't see his family, the thing he actually kind of wants to do this for. He doesn't see his friends. It consumes his life. And nobody sees that, right? So, and maybe that's a trade-off that he's willing to make, that many other people wouldn't be. The same thing applies to athletes that sacrifice so much. And we can get so easily sucked into this comparison with other people if we only see the good and, not see the bad. And whenever I find myself comparing myself to people on social media or to people who have accomplished these huge things that I want to accomplish, and I feel insecure because I haven't accomplished them yet, I always think, what is the first thought that they have when they wake up in the morning? because I think this humanizes people. Like Elon Musk or Michael Phelps, they at some point put their head on the pillow, they fall asleep alone, maybe, and then they wake up and they have a thought and they have to get out of bed. These are people. When people are so like over-dimensionally extraordinarily successful, we tend to think of them as constructs and not as people anymore, but they're people. Like, it's a human being in flesh and bone. And so what thought does someone like Elon Musk have when they wake up in the morning? I'm not sure I would want to have that thought. And even imagining what he thinks about makes me not want to have his amount of wealth. And so next time when you find yourself envying someone for what they have or for what they've done, think about what's the first thing that they think about in the morning, what's the last thing they think about when they go to sleep. Do you want to have these thoughts? And then hopefully this puts it in perspective for you. Now, at some point, you will have to choose a path. You will have to make a decision of what to study, what to start, and what route to go down. And the investment you make is the most valuable investment you can possibly make. You invest in the most valuable resource you could possibly invest, which is your time. And your time has a very important property. You cannot get it back. So the way you spend your time is by definition an irrevocable decision, because you can't go back in time. The way I spend my time right now is an irrevocable decision, because I can never make another choice with the 3 minutes I just spent. Knowing that, I want you to know one very, very, very important concept. Humans underestimate how happy they are with irreversible choices, with choices they cannot take back. I repeat it again. If you make a choice that you cannot take back, you will underestimate how happy you are with that choice after you've made it. Let's take this example. You buy a sweater. You have to buy a sweater and you have two options. They look the same, they cost the same. One, return policy forever. You can always give it back. The other one, no return policy. You buy it, you keep it, done. Which one would you rather buy? Most people would buy the one that they can give it back, because why wouldn't you? You know, you always have this option, you have more choice. More choice seems good. Well, no, not in this scenario, although not always. When you run this experiment, people are happier with the items that they cannot give back. The reason is something called your psychological immune system. Your psychological immune system is a series of unconscious processes in your brain that protects you from psychological damage. If you buy the sweater that you can give back, then you might always left be wondering, there was this other sweater in another color, and the other had these nice like inseams, and the hoodie was a bit different, so maybe I could change it. And these thoughts will keep going in your head. If you buy the sweater that you can never give back, then your psychological immune system is activated, and you suddenly, unconsciously, start to come up with all kinds of reasons why the sweater you bought is actually the best sweater ever, why it's amazing. You think, initially I didn't like the color, but now I love it. And I just remembered, I have these shoes, it goes well with that, and I can use it in so many different situations. Notice that in yourself. You're gonna notice it. You start to come up with reasons why your decision is a good one. You start to justify and self-rationalize your decision. The reason is because your unconscious wants you to think you've made a good decision and comes up with all these reasons. When you buy the sweater that you can give back, there's always an option to opt out, and so your unconscious is not motivated to start this self-rationalization response. The most important thing is that you don't know that you don't know how happy you are with irreversible choices. And this is why you are afraid of commitment. You're afraid of big life decisions, and you don't make them. You don't make a commitment to a job that might change your life. You don't move countries and invest a lot of your time in that because you are afraid that it's the right choice and you underestimate how happy you will be. And this knowledge, or this lack of knowledge, keeps people from making big decisions and binding commitments that would maximize their long-term happiness, because they don't know that their unconscious actually works in their favor in these scenarios. And once you know that, you can use that knowledge to trick yourself into feeling good. I noticed this like crazy when I was in New Zealand. I had been here for 6 months and I had to make a decision whether to extend my stay here for another 6 months. And I wrestled with that decision for a very, very long time. After a while, I made that decision, and literally the next day I came up with all sorts of reasons suddenly why this was a great decision. Why I noticed good things about the city that I was in and about the hostel I was staying at and about all the cool things that I could be doing in the next couple of months. All things that hadn't occurred to me before, because I wasn't forced to look at the good things of that. And so I really wish that this knowledge gives you a bit of confidence in yourself with big decisions. Confidence is a good transition to my last point. Confidence and self-belief does not come out of nowhere. It comes from evidence. Before you start a new project, or before you start studying, or before you run your first half marathon, you just don't know. It would be kind of weird if you had this crazy self-belief in yourself that you can accomplish anything without having reason to believe that. Confidence comes from evidence. That means if you're training for a half marathon and you've already run a 5K 5 times a week for the last 10 weeks, or you've ran a 10K a couple times, or you've ran a 15K a couple times, then you have evidence that you can complete difficult challenges in the domain of running, and then you're gonna have more self-belief that you can accomplish this next big thing. If you have already written 15 blog posts, then your assessment of the probability, so your confidence, that you're going to write the 16th is very high. But if you've never done this before, then you don't have any data to ground your confidence in. Now this presents you with a big problem, because often we want to feel confident before we start something, but you can't because you've never done it before. And this is where courage comes in. Why this podcast is called Courageously Curious. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is if you do it despite being afraid, if you do it scared. And so when you start something, you're always gonna be afraid, and courage takes you from 0 to 1. You start it, you do it, although you're afraid. And then you have generated 1 point of evidence. I'm literally like, this is totally me talking to myself, right? This podcast episode is very, very scary. But I've already put out episode 0, like last time. And so this was my courage moment that I needed to take me from 0 episodes to publishing 1 episode. And now I've already gathered 1 point of evidence that I can publish a podcast episode. Now, if I do this, if I manage to press upload on this episode, I have gathered 2 points of evidence that I can publish a podcast episode. And with every episode I publish, the mountain of evidence that I can do the thing I want to do grows. Right? It grows. Now, I might still doubt myself after 150 episodes, because I would say I'm naturally predisposed to needing a lot of evidence before I think I can do something, especially in the creative domain. But there is no way around this. Only by stacking evidence, by Crystal Williamson, thank you, doing the thing. Only doing the thing helps you to gain a bit more confidence. And I hope that these things help you. In one of the next episodes, I will talk about very concrete decision-making frameworks you can use to make major life decisions that have made my life much, much easier. Like concrete questions you can ask yourself that simplify very complex decisions, very big decisions, into very concrete, smaller and actionable decisions. This is a promise I make. I'm going to do that in the next couple episodes. For now, I am happy that I did this, and I have stacked another piece of evidence. Let's go. I brought pizza, but I didn't really eat it. Yeah, and I hope you enjoyed the scenery. Thank you. If that helped you, leave a comment, subscribe to the show, and let's see together where we end up.